Hello and welcome back to Black Girl Couch Reviews. I'm your host, Christina. I am excited that we are back for the second season of Foundation. I have been looking forward to this premiere. I have been excited about this series. I finished the first prequel. I am about a couple of pages done with the second prequel. These are two very distinct properties. They do share similarities, but if you are going to be someone like myself that jumps into the book after watching the series or even after finishing season 2, it might be a little jarring on some of the differences, and there are quite a few. But as stated previously, an adaptation is not meant to and should not, quite frankly, be an absolute copy of the original work. And I think there is plenty, because that was one of the critiques I had seen, was that, well, they're not focusing on the plot points in the story, they're focusing on the characterizations. And I can say, as someone reading both of the prologues, the lack of characterization is a bit, the books are dense. They're dense. They do jump from thing to thing. And you could tell that as much as I enjoy the big picture of what Isaac Asimov is bringing in this science fiction genre, the focus on the people are not, even within the conversations, they're rather, they're it would be my one critique if I have to say any critique at all in regards to the series, is there's not a lot of heavy meat when it comes to the people. They're very much just people needed for the bigger thing that's going on. That doesn't make sense to you if you didn't read the book. But I do enjoy the book very much. Actually, I enjoy after the second one a lot. And I like that I can go into this world and notice certain things without having to worry too much about it affecting my viewing experience because of its distinction. Because I was getting concerned that I was going to jump into this new season and start just looking for things. And no, it's very casually thrown in there as, oh, if you read the books, you would probably kind of get this line or that particular set piece. Like, I believe we saw the heat sinks, which is something I've been trying to visualize in the books, and I think they gave us a visualization of it in the show. That is just one example. I have epilogued enough. In Seldon's Shadow was written by David S. Goyer and Jane Eppenson, directed by Alex Graves. I gave this episode a 9.6 out of 10. I did love what was going on in Trantor, and I was slightly intrigued on what is happening on Terminus, and I felt a little, I don't know, about what's going on in the Synax. Before we jump into the recap, wherever you listen to this podcast, Podbean, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, go down to the rating section, drop some stars, leave a review. My social media will be there as well. If you want to send feedback, blackgirlcouch@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment below as well. The new intro looks pretty damn sick. I watched it all the way through. The visuals, they do not at all cut corners with them. And that is visual porn that I am very titillated by. Seldon's consciousness from the knife is going through what many prisoners in isolation suffer.
Emotional damage.
He doesn't understand why Raish's life was given for Gail's because he was supposed to be the one in the pod. Not her, but because she knew what was happening, she became an unpredictable part, kind of like an outlier in the plan. He has a few epic quotes here. Idolatry will feed his sickness, as well as God made wine to compensate those who cannot afford revenge. I think those two particular quotes will have some insight into the season as it unfolds. He speaks of himself as a god, as he had a plan equivalent to the divine one. But as Gaal remarks, quote, any man can be a success, but it takes a madman to be great. And we know this because history often proves it. Nietzsche, brilliant, Friedrich Nietzsche, madman. He literally went insane. Who's the writer that cut his own ear off? There's a lot. There's definitely a correlation, and there's a reason for that correlation. Back to the most awkward conversation ever. My name is Salvor Harding, and I'm your daughter.
What the hell did you just say?
What do you mean by that?
You may not have recalled the embryo you donated, but surprise, I'm it, and also significantly older than you. Which I would think would mean that you're emotionally advanced, and thus should know the I was always yours might be a bit much on top of everything else about how you came to find her here. But she was defining what I would consider thirsty. Because I know I have feedback from Mimi in this podcast, I'm going to throw that line out there. They both do share this sixth sense through space and time that many years of cryosleep later have reunited them. And she wants her to tell her everything. That's a long, long story. I'm not quite sure I'm going to give you the entire story because it doesn't feel like she got even half the crumbs that I think the reckoning's going to happen and she's going to get the whole thing. Trantor, with the rings around it, looks stunning now that they don't have the bridge. As Gaal explains, the first foundation, notice that they call it the first now, succeeded in acquiring a few planets from the Empire at the outer edges, whereas the Empire, like the rising water, which is a lot of analogies they love to pull in this particular script, steadily is rising, causing it to contract. You know what else is contracting? My lady part, seeing Lee Pace naked and breaking a sweat.
I'ma call your big daddy and scream your name. Matter of fact, I can't wait for your candy rain.
So what you saying? I get my swerve on, bring it live, make it last forever. Damn, the kitty cat's tired.
Daddy, slow down your flow. Put it on me like a G, baby, nice and slow. I need a roughneck nigga, Manzingo and a sack who ain't afraid to pull my hand, spank me from the back.
No doubt, I'm the player that you're talking about.
But do you really think that you can work it out?
I guarantee you, shorty, it's real. Baby, stick it out. Here comes the man of steel.
Doing it and doing it and doing it well. Doing it and doing it and doing it well. Doing it and doing it and doing it well.
I represent Queens, she was raised out in Brooklyn.
Doing it and doing it and doing it well. Doing it and doing it and doing it well. Doing it and doing it and doing it well.
I represent Queens, she was raised out in Brooklyn. I'm in the mix now, searching for the right spot to hit.
I'm so jealous of his husband. Then I came out of my self-induced fantasy, realizing what he's doing, because all I was seeing was his ass going up and down. I was like, oh yes, please bang me into the pillows like this. But alas, it's not me who he's fucking. I was instantly creeped the fuck out when I realized it was Demerzel. I'm like, she raised you.
Oh, that's nasty. Oh, they're so nasty.
And while, yes, this was hinted on, it just feels, I'm sure in someone's mind, this is a romantic story. I am not one of those folks, okay? I understand the intimacy, trusted protector, confident, but then when it starts to slide over to that maternal figure, like I wiped your shit and your poop. I suckled you. I'm pretty sure she did not suckle those. She cannot suckle those children. But you get what I mean. It just reeks of Sigmund Freud's obsession with dicks in the mother's teeth. Just as she tells Empire to open his eyes because he should be shamed, which is why they're closed, he glimpses an assassin just in time to use Demerzel as a shield, which results in half her skull coming off. This is intriguing as almost no one knows that Demerzel is a robot in the books. And there's a reason for it, but it is seemingly known within the palace grounds. And even last season, I believe someone suspected as much. They're certainly changing what I have an understanding of Demerzel to be, which is curious because I don't know what they're going to do with this character. This day isn't like his predecessors, relishing the physical altercation with the assassins to prove his manhood and utilizing the skills to unleash his barbarity, but his cockiness at being protected by his aura costs him a blast, which shatters through his chest area. Of course, part of me is thinking, you got guards for this shit. And the fact that you can control them and they're robotic and you can just use, or maybe it's not even that, they're not robotic. Actually, I take that completely back. Now that I think about it, he just lifts his fingers and, one of his guards automatically responds to his command. Especially if that command is deaf. That makes a lot more sense. But they just wanted to have a scene of him kicking ass. Butt ass naked, and I don't at all shame them for that. I don't care if it didn't make sense. It was a show I enjoyed. Seconds before death, Demerzel saves him, pushing her robotic hand through the sternum of that guy's chest, while Cleon throws a blade to end the last assassin. She easily carries the naked man. I will say, Empire, Demerzel. I don't know why that made me laugh, but I didn't need either one of those words. No, Empire was fine. When he said Demerzel, that's what I was like, come on, you are not after that display. She easily carries the naked man to the healing tank. The way he was dumped in. Once again, I don't think any of these scenes were meant to be comical. I just found myself laughing. I don't have an explanation. She injects him with something that will stave off the poison seconds away from ending his life. And I was thinking, was Demerzel aware of the attack? Could she have orchestrated the attack? Kind of surprised she killed, from what I know about the laws of robotics, but I have a feeling all those things don't apply. Harry's consciousness is now in the Prime Radiant. I think we casually glossed over the idea that consciousness can survive or even be extracted into an inanimate object, or how knowledgeable that information is in the galaxy. Don't know if we'll come back to it, but we'll put a pin there. A flashback shows Harry was always a curious child, changing a 2D shadow into a 3D shadow with the encouragement of his mother. His father, on the other hand, is more upset about the cost of the book by ripping out said page from the book, and now it's totally ruined, which I don't think it is, since that page looked like it needed to be ripped out anyway, or it was meant to, which garners him a slap across the face, and this seems like it's a regular occurrence. Nothing like childhood trauma and daddy issues to spur one's motivation to overcome the odds. Because Harry is definitely more determined after remembering why he became the person he became in the first place. The visuals were intriguing as he traverses the Prime Radiant, eventually running into Yana, his love, sorry Doris, who has passed. He knows she isn't there and is proven correct when she does not speak like his life mate. You like work. Work it out. Gaal has a vision about something in the future that spooks her into searching for Salvor. Salvor, returning in a boat, believes her mother drowned due to how long she can hold her breath underwater as she was searching for her. She also sees the beggar down there. I like the way in which the boat, again, the visuals are chef's kiss on this show. Gaal explains that she has dreams of the future, whereas Salvor has visions of her mother's past. And while she believes this is something they have in common, Gaal points out it's not the same. Oh, so nothing in common.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping.
Calm down, Salvor. You're convinced that this is meant to be, and it may not be. Enforcing it is not going to get you where you want this relationship to be. And while I love that they went into the scene that they went into at the end, these are very basic concepts to understand. It's not even like, oh, you carried me and now you know about me. No, I was an embryo. I was a thought. I was a maybe in your future. And now I'm here. And you're just like, you're wanting it to happen so bad. Salvor wonders why Gaal hasn't opened the Prime Radiant, and when she lies, she proves it by flipping her instinctive coin. 173 years have passed since Seldon died. The Foundation has thrived since its isolation, but its days of being unseen by the Empire are approaching, hence why a siren goes off that hasn't been heard in 138 years since Seldon Harding's time. Salvor Harding's time. Something the new warden remarks upon when the vault hath opened. The new warden is played by, what is his name? I want to say Mike Holt. I'm going to find it at some point, probably when I'm listening to feedback. Because there are a few new characters that probably need some introduction. But he was in Mindhunters. That's what I know him mostly from. While the null field is lifting, there's no sign of Harry, and the warden doesn't think there will be. He believes the time of the vault opening is their warning to get ready for war, something that the director and the brigade have been preparing for, even though the brigade will never think it's enough. Notice there's far less idealists, scientists, the nerdy kind, and now everyone has gotten heavily militant. Harry follows the person impersonating Yana, who tells him he needed a familiar face that he can trust. While not on board with the tactic, her cadence reminds him of something Gaal quoted, anapastic trimeter, the work of one mathematician poet named Gaal. He figures out he is in the space he and Yana figured out using Gaal's formulations for the Prime Radiant. Back on Senex, Gaal explains she moved Harry's consciousness there last night, as she doesn't trust him and who and what he is willing to sacrifice for the plan. Now, there are two consciousness of Harry out there, and I can't help but think that is not going to be good. Because, as we know, different experiences can deviate one's path. Gaal is also aware of Harry's egomaniaism, if you will. He mentions it himself, only he can be trusted with everything. And that might be a problem, since the other person it looks like he trusted was Raish. And while Gaal is someone special, maybe that's why Raish gave up his spot. Maybe he thought that she was needed for the plan and not him. I don't know. This is going to be intriguing because she's supposed to be somewhere else that she didn't end up being. Hardin calls her out on not trusting the plan in itself, and while she may not care about what has happened in 138 years, she does, as the fall could have already happened. So they check on what's going on with the Prime Radiant. She shows her how to access it, but something tells me Salvor still doesn't fully grasp, because when she was doing all that, she's like, what the fuck? Like, do you see that? No, I don't know how you're managing to do this. The second crisis is on their doorstep, but the plan is veering off course due to the fact that things have changed, such as Gaal not being there to lead the first crisis or solve the first crisis in the first place. Whereas if they don't prepare now for the third crisis, the Age of Darkness won't be shorter, but so long that the end is nowhere in sight. Back on Trantor, Day shows his personality. He screams in pain, refusing antiseptic or anesthesia. I don't know why that was funny. As he fears being decanted, while hilariously blaming everyone, including his younger self, of trying to kill him, before demanding everyone in the room gets him a towel. Feels as if he is overcompensating in his masculinity, if you ask me, which is funny considering what Queen Sereth have to say about his building project. So I may be onto something there. His younger self doesn't seem to be impressed with all this brashness and, way in which he's trying to show his machoism. Day, leaning on Dawn so casually, like he's his crutch, asks the Shadow Master who attacked him. The Blind Angels, which are highly encrypted assassins, highly trained, and also won't leave a trace of where they came from, and so he must die. Once everyone has left the room, Day says, don't you feel like a singularity? I feel like a singularity. I was about to die. I didn't want to die. And furthermore, if I were to die, I would just be decanted. Something that really is sticking in his craw, because I won't even know about it. I'll just be gone. Replaced. Isn't that abnormal? They're like, no, that's the abnormality in our genes. Ignore it. He wants to marry and have children to create a legacy, a genetic legacy of his own, and fears Dawn and Dusk, who are opposed, may seek to eliminate the possibility, so he has them interrogated. Dawn said, you don't have to sift through our memories. We have nothing to hide.
How about I do anyway?
You can see the cracks shifting here, though. And it seems to come mostly in the form of Day as he's going through this particular crisis. And it may be something each generation of Day has gone through, which is why Dawn and Dusk are rather allowing for this attitude, so to speak, while he has the mantle of. Because the other Day that we met was already feeling some kind of way before he found out. It's almost like he knew, like something's not quite right. Are we really just the same copy of this man? And then finding out otherwise probably continues in this particular age time frame where he is fighting against that idea of being a part of something or an assimilation versus being a singularity. And he thinks that Dawn and Dusk must surely feel these same things, but they both deny feeling this way. So either they have felt it and are denying it, or have yet to feel it and are denying it. This newly formed hostility, though, will definitely add chinks in the armor that can't be undone, as it seems to have escalated over the generations. Continuing to distrust the people you should be the most trustworthy of due to your insecurity of position is going to only eventually push them into the path that you are accusing them of already doing. Day finally checks on Demerzel, who he is genuinely concerned about that black earring.
Baby.
However, the way he said we are doing something, like, hey, what we were doing, was that indecent? And it ties into a conversation he had later with Dusk. I'm guessing the fucking is rather recent, and it may be purposeful on her part, because it leverages a certain amount of emotional control that Dusk definitely sees through. And considering she initiated it, also aligns with that, and the fact that, you know, this assassination attempt happened and he doesn't at all. I mean, he's questioning everyone but Demerzel. Like, oh, well, she was there, and it's a good thing she was there because she's the one that saved me. If you save the person that, you know, you think is supposed to be have their life in danger, and she seemed to only interfere when, because I know her ass could have got up off that floor sooner. Only when it was clear that his aura, like the fact that they are now realizing they are not impenetrable, that's a problem. That's going to make everyone feel more at edge and more in touch with their mortality as well. But back to the way he said, like, oh, did we do anything? Was that indecent with a smile? It felt like a kid screwing the hot teacher everyone's salivating over and having a crush on, forgetting that, you know, as the kid in the situation, that it's not right. All you're thinking is it's cool and you always wanted to and it feels good and I don't understand what's wrong with it. But, you know, maybe some years later you realize, you know, maybe it's not okay for a 35-year-old woman to be touching on a 15-year-old boy. Something given out of love is never indecent, is what she replies. And I'm like, girl, pedophiles say they molest children out of love, so I gotta call bullshit on that one. Not everything given in love is decent. We go back to another glorious scene of the ship leaving Cloud Dominion. I like seeing the heat sinks. And it's a unique enough design that I was attracted to it. It contains Queen Sereth and Rue, who is getting her ready by remarking upon how the rings were not there, or they were working on them the last time she was there. And there's a mention of it like a lizard, but there's an analogy, you know, a lizard does certain when they're insecure, and they're like, she's gonna be underestimated. That's what I got from that conversation. As she's arriving, Dusk is chastising Day for fraternizing with Demerzel, something Day takes great delight in, seeing as his predecessor did. Dusk hears about how his aura failed him and how lucky it was that she was there, and suggests that he hire Day and an outside firm to investigate, because either the guards are in on it or incompetent. And while he is focus inward, he should also be wary of those outward. Day remarks that, hey, we keep bringing people in, embracing in our empire, and we don't know who, like, foreigners are not so foreign anymore, or always foreign. But, you know, this is parcel of the job. We're always going to have people around us scheming. They mention how the queen, not they, Dusk mentions how the queen engineered the accident that landed her the title of being queen. And while both Day and Sereth haven't agreed to the union, it was Day who made the proposal, believing that they are drifting further and further from their genetic code. Dusk wonders why he is steering them, because he agrees, you know what? Yeah, we are drifting a little bit apart. But it is an odd thing to steer them directly into the rapids, whereas they were only just drifting. Mayhap he is an outlier himself. I don't know. Desiring his own agency or self within the dynasty, though, seems to be a competing theme. It's a game of dominion, and always has been, between these clones of themselves. They always trying to live up to the greater version of who they want to be, or was before them, and have itched to define their own godlike, or being worthy of their godlike creator. It's time the Empire learned to paddle again, brother. Their conversation, upon showing how beautiful the queen's entourage is, with her standing in the light of the clouds, cloud dominion, and the way she lifts her blue line eye to the camera, all of that was just visually stunning. Back on Synax, Gaal declares home isn't home. Like that wasn't very clear from the moment you got on this one little raft. It's already breaking apart. I mean, it looks super cool, don't get me wrong. But that's like, how long did you think that was going to last for you to even already not be thinking of what plan B was? It's a good thing they came to this conclusion, though. There's a hurricane coming, warned by the sea life below, and they need desperately to get the beggar up and going, as they now have multiple crises to deal with. So Gaal and Salvor head down to the ship to get it rebooted. Things, fortunately, for the most part, go well, with Salvor admitting it's weird. Because first she tries to help her and she's like, don't. Because she don't like to be touched. But then she apologizes. She says, you don't have to apologize. My thirst is real. This is weird. I've spent a long time in hypersleep thinking about how this would be. And I assume we just have this connection. And then I would make sense. But Gaal said, it's been a day.
Relax, don't do it when you want to go to it. Relax, don't do it when you want to come. Relax, don't do it when you want to suck it to it.
I couldn't process my trauma and ran away into a hyper sleep back to my planet. I don't think you know how much I'm not really mentally prepared for what you want to come next. But we both share that everyone we ever loved is behind us, and they are the last of the Synacrians. Queen Seraph, this was my favorite scene of the episode, only because she was dragging the shit out of Cleon. I think when they said she was not to be underestimated, I was thinking she was going to be like a chameleon, you know, super effusive in her mannerisms. No. This is a man who can take his two fingers and order you dead. They saunter into the hall where Cleon presents himself. Rue presents the queen, who Day was definitely curious to see how she looked. When he presents her brothers, she remarks, well, they managed a kind look for the usurper, acknowledging she is fully aware of what people are saying about her, and she was going to address the elephant in the room. Rue presents their gift, which Dusk happily received along with Dawn. Well, Dawn got to explain how giddy he was about this paint, because Dominion, her kingdom, engineered the science of active chroma, which is what they use to paint the murals of the walls. While Dusk is satisfied with this particular gift, Dawn looks like he would rather investigate Sarah's chroma. But Dawn has always been rather attracted to the romance, right? I don't think there'd be a romance going on, but because she ain't even looking that boy's direction. He tried to keep catching glimpses, and she was focused heavily on Day and having her verbal confrontation with him. However, when Empire offers a brass copy of Trantor, a symbol of what is being offered to her, she said, "It's beautiful, but Trantor surely has more Empire, or is this a vision of a diminished future?"
Shots fired.
And we thought she was done. No. Then she followed that up with, "Your rings are impressive, but surely there are more efficient ways to launch payloads into space."
What did he say?
Not to be outdone, but not realizing how stupid he sounds, he goes, "When you have such a large empire, all trumps efficiency. Nevertheless, one wouldn't want to interpret them as an overcompensation for weakness." Of course, I'm on the sidelines going, "Baby girl is wildin'. Someone get her. Rue, get her. Get her." We were not ready. Dawn, then the way she just tossed that brass thing aside like it was shit. She's like, "Nobody want this." He didn't get the last word though, because Demerzel demands their attention. They be wildin' too. "You could talk in front of my new empress." No, I cannot. I don't see any actual written declarations. He said, "Nah, she may not know it, but we getting married. Bitch, I'm marrying you." I think his kink is strong females. I wonder where he got that from. Oh, man. So the colonel that died last season, his body has finally been discovered centuries actually later. And they see the message about the Anacreons taking over the Foundation. While Dusk wants to crush what he believes was a mistake by letting them go in the first place, that wasn't you though, bruh. Demerzel offers restraint to see how far things have gotten, make them think that they are still unseen. Because we need to see how far the rot has spread, if it's down to the trunk, earning a side-eye from Dusk. Dusk is side-eyeing him for fucking Demerzel and immediately agreeing with everything she says. And he's probably like, "I've been through this phase. I just didn't tell you about it." Dusk does have the last word, though, because he goes, "Magicians, angels." There's talk of people who glow in their body. I think those are the magicians. And a prophet, Harry Seldon, that's going to lead them. So you got provisional brides. Get your house in order, brother. Dawn just looks conflicted every time he's in the middle of these conflicts. Harry realizes that the person he is talking to is the Prime Radiant. It has both its creators involved, Yana and Kaylee, who helped build it, and while Harry never would allow a sort of consciousness or a way for the Radiant to learn to develop itself, he wasn't its only designer. His work is incomplete, and she says she's here to help him get to completion, having a vested interest in humanity's trajectory. While she believes it's the same thing as humanity's survival, Harry doesn't agree. And while she can't let him out, she is trying to help him knit his fractured mind back together. He is able to recall his childhood explanation of dimensions because he wasn't in the mood at that moment to figure it out. To find his way to the door, she wishes him good luck and tells him that she can help him more if he meets her on Una's world. The girls are trapped and need to find the code for something on the ship that will allow them to fly. Gaal is reluctant to let Harry out, seeing as they parted on bad terms. Gaal, or Salvor, thinks that she's being ridiculous until Harry shows up yelling Gale's name, looking very angry and telling her it's time she and he had a reckoning.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
That is going to do it for my review. I did want to give a shout out before we go to feedback to the new characters thus far introduced. Queen Seraph of Cloud Dominion is played by Ella Ray Smith. I know her from Into the Badlands. Rue is played by Sandra Yee Sensendever. And the Warden is played by Holt McConnelly. I don't know where I got Mike Connolly, or I don't even know what I was saying, Mike Nolte from, but clearly failed with his name. But credit has now been given where it's due. I think Ben Daniels is also supposed to be in this season. I love me some Ben Daniels. I don't know who he's playing, but I heard that he was supposed to be in this season. That's all I got. Let's hop into the mailbag.
Mail, motherfucker!
What up, Stina? It's Mimi. This is my feedback for Foundation, Season 2, Episode 1. So, don't expect this to be long, because I gotta be honest with you. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I made sure that I was not distracted and I was paying attention fully when I was watching this. And I saw everything that's happening, but the comprehension level, girl, I don't fucking know. I have no idea. And I watched the recap, but I seriously don't even remember what happened last season. The last thing I remember is Salvor, she took, one of those, sleep, I don't know, those cryo sleep pods, and she went to Cyrax, I think it's Cyrax, whatever planet Gaal is from, and she found her, and it was 138 years later, so over a century. So I remember that. But what happened? I thought that Harry was in that little, I don't know what it's called, the little black thing that's on Terminix. But now he's also in that little sphere, gold sphere thing. I have no idea. I really don't understand. I do get that it's been 130 years. So I know that the Terminix that we left, they're a completely different group of people. It would have, Salvor, her entire, her boyfriend is dead, her mom and dad's dead. She didn't have any siblings, so everybody she knew was gone. And it would be at least a couple generations past. They've been dead for a long time. But what I don't get is why Day is boning the android lady. I thought she didn't like him because he was a liar. Granted, that's a different generation. I guess I don't remember if their memories passed down and down. Because the last thing I remember about the android and Day was she said he didn't have a soul because he didn't see anything in that water after he did the excursion and made it to that pool. It was just darkness. But now, if I'm understanding it correctly, he had someone like tried to kill him, and they were ninjas with no eyeballs. I guess they're called the blind angels. And I'm assuming they think that, like, we're supposed to think that this is coming from Terminex, because I remember they decided to, like, work together with some other alien group that's trying to take over Terminex. I remember that, but the details are fuzzy. And I do realize that the last scene we saw with Day and the android and all them was like the report of the one trying to get in contact with the Empire. The transmission finally made it there, but it was a century later, like 138 years. Like, I don't know what they thought was going to happen, but if it takes that long for your SOS to get across the galaxy, motherfucker, what was the point of sending it? Like, just to let him know, like, did you know you were going to die? I don't remember. Maybe he knew he was going to die and he was just trying to let them warn them. But, I mean, after over a century, they got a really good head start. So that war is probably brewing. Anyway, so I'm probably not going to be very good at this right now, because it's been so long since the last season. And I remember I watched it after you guys. I wasn't caught up when you guys finished, but I know it's been over a year. I would say probably like 2 years since the last Foundation. I hate when shows are that far apart and they don't give you a more in-depth recap. Some of us don't have really great memories like that. So for them to not give me a good enough recap of what the fuck happened is kind of disrespectful. Because y'all know this show to me is like watching Westworld. The reason I didn't watch it till yesterday was because, like, the day that it came out, I was not in the headspace. Like, I can't watch this and pay a full attention, and I'm not gonna understand what's going on. Because even when I pay full attention and I'm not distracted, I still don't know what's going on. So, like, I have no idea. I don't know what the plan is. I know Harry was talking to, it was they weren't real. I think it was the actual, like, the little goal thing. I forget what it's called. He was talking to it itself. Apparently I guess over the last 138 years since Gaal trapped Harry in it, he, like, the thing has been evolving into, like, some type of artificial intelligence because of the brain power that was already in it, and it adapted and it evolved. Whatever, I don't know. I still don't understand why Gaal trapped Harry in there. She says she doesn't trust him, which is great, but you also followed him and did everything he told you to. I know the last encounter they had, if I remember correctly, it was her boo thing that killed Harry to trigger whatever war was going on, and he died, and she got sent. I think she got locked up again, and she woke up and some time had passed again. So she keeps waking up in different times. So I'm just real confused on what is happening right now. I know you read the book. Maybe you can give me a more in-depth recap, because I, for the life of me, have no idea what's going on. I understand the sequence of events that's happening in the show, but I can't link it up with what happened in the past. And, like, it's been so long, just in general, like from the last episode of season 1 to this one, that a lot has happened, but then there's this giant ass time gap. So, I mean, maybe we're not supposed to know what's going on right now. I'm not sure. The last thing is, I guess Day is deciding he wants to get married, and instead of just cloning himself, he wants to have a child. I guess because I remember the last Dawn that they had to kill him because his DNA was compromised. But they must have fixed it, because clearly in the last 138 years they've kept recycling the same DNA and made clones. But now his bright idea is to have a child, so he's going to marry a queen from another galaxy. I don't know. I don't think this is gonna go the way he wants it to, because like a clone of a clone of a clone, I can't imagine is gonna produce the greatest DNA genetics. And then the thing about actually reproducing, the difference between that and actually cloning is that you can't choose what genetic makeup your children get. They might get a lot of stuff from you, and they might get none. They might get the worst parts of you and your wife, or they might get the best. So I don't think he understands what he's doing, because he's so used to the perfection of cloning. So this is actually might be good. The Empire needs to go anyway. Anytime one person has power over an entire galaxy, bunch of dimensions, I don't fucking know what the hell the Foundation is, but it's just the same person over and over and over again, recycling himself, cloning himself multiple times, even to the point where he has a spare older self and a spare younger self, and it's just going to be Cleon until infinity, the end of all days. Yeah, that's never good. So Terminix, I feel like there's a power in the mix beside them, but I guess we don't know. I did see that they actually have grown a lot, so I guess we'll see. I'm gonna end it here, because at this point I'm just continuously saying that I don't know what the fuck's going on, which I think is clear at this point. So until next time, love, peace, hair grease, and black girl magic. Queen of the couch, Mimi out.
That was Queen Mimi with her thoughts on the episode, or her, more like her confusion as she states. She's like, y'all can fuck yourself with that short recap. I didn't even watch it, so I don't know how in-depth it was. Fair enough. And it has been a year and a half. I will say that much. What can I do to recap you? Let me see here. I'm going to hit the huge plot points. The Foundation, of course. I'm not going to get everything, because you said you probably remember up to a certain point. But in the ending, Salvor Harding, she was able to solve the first crisis by having them overcome the Anachrons, getting having them have the ship, taking control of that ship, so the Foundation could basically be hidden away from the Empire. And they had sent a team out there to investigate what was going on, but that team was killed, and the guy that they found was one of the members of that team. I think it's perfectly plausible that in space and with the stretch of the Empire, he would be found, because anything in space just doesn't go around. That's the thing that cracks me up. They did a Rick and Morty episode of that, but you don't watch that. But they made this joke that everyone thinks that space is empty. It's like, no, there's shit up there. It doesn't go away. It could get sucked in a black hole, but most likely, if it's something like the guy had he was encased in a metal thing. I don't know about his body looking as fresh as it did, but finding the equipment he had made, yes, he recorded his last message, and that message finally got to there. And what they were saying in this episode is they were under the impression, because they fooled the Empire into believing that a solar flare destroyed that entire area. And because the dynasty was rocked by the fact that they have impurities in their genetic code, that it's corrupted, they never sent a follow-up. And as Dust said, we dropped the ball. So because we were distracted and didn't do a follow-up like we should have, we never really we thought the problem had went away with the Foundation. Now we're finding out, when this message is retrieved, holy shit, things happen, and now the Foundation's still there and thriving. And that other day, they always were suspicious of something else bigger going on. They just didn't know what it was. As far as Salvor, after she helped the Foundation with the crisis or whatever, she decided she wanted to find her mother after having visions of her. And Mary Seldon finally, I keep saying Seldon, Mary Salvor, they do sound very similar, said it's okay, go after your mother. And so she did. And she went in cryo sleep for 138 years until she landed on Synax, which is her mother's home planet, and met her there. As far as Gaal is concerned, no, she did not. She's not on board with she was on board with the plan up to a point. He was one of her last recruits, and this is very accurate to the book. But Gaal does not. That's another thing. I can't too much with the books because they're not the same. Gaal's role, what she played in the books and what she's playing here are two different things. She's a mixture of a few characters I have a belief in. But as far as how we left it with her, she discovered Raish killing Harry. Harry and Seldon set it up because he was dying for Raish to kill him because he knew that he could never go to the Foundation. He never intended to go to the Foundation because they're going to look at him like the Messiah. And he didn't want that. It would ruin it all. So Gaal was his chosen pick to run the Foundation, to get it up and running. Raish was supposed to be on that pod to go to the second Foundation that was going to be set up on his home planet of whatever the fuck his home planet was. It's escaping me right now, and I know that from the books. But when she woke up, because his consciousness was in the knife that Raish threw in with her. Raish, she woke up in the pod. It was, as you pointed out, some years later, because I need to do the math, but somewhere between 138 and 173. So whatever that math ends up to be, she woke up close to where the second Foundation was, but Harry was shocked to see her because she was not supposed to be there. She's shocked because she's like, what the fuck? She was never in on what actually was going on with the Foundation. All she helped up to that point was supporting Harry Seldon. And believing in his idea of psychohistory and understanding psychohistory. But as far as how much her tentacles are involved in following him and setting things up, not much. So one would say, in the words of Westworld, she's an outlier. She seems to also have some type of power that's passed down genetically from her to her daughter. Her daughter uses it in the way that she's able to determine if people are lying. But she also has visions of the past. Whereas they said in this episode, her mother has visions of the future, which is how she was able to know something was wrong when right before, like, that was explored when the, I think it was in the show as well as in the books, when the shaft exploded. She says something's wrong and then the shaft explodes. So she has some type of precognition. And I think that's going to tie to some things that we have yet to know about the second Foundation. And there's a lot. So some of the things, yes, you're not supposed to know, but a few of the things as far as how we got here, for the most part, that is so once she found that out, and once she understood that she had precognition, and Harry understood she had precognition, that left them at a crossroads, because he wanted her to take him so he can make the second Foundation. And she says, fuck you, I'm not doing that. And then she decided that she was going to abandon the ship that was headed for the second Foundation with his consciousness and go to Synax. And that's what she's been doing in hypersleep for 138 years. And right when she got there is when her daughter happened to get there as well. So whatever cosmic whatever brought them together, circumstances. It seems to be intentional. So there's a clear, I think, exploration of otherworldly type things going on. And Gaal and Salvor are being closely tied to that. Which is interesting because they did do it a little different with different characters in the books. So I got a gist of what's happening. But how they bend it for the show, I have no idea. But we're not supposed to know. And then the whole Queen Seraph thing, you're not missing anything there. That's new. She's not even a book character, even though I have suspicions of what she's after and why she's after it. What other questions did you have? Well, we don't know how them feels. He felt he was gonna die. I have no idea what that is. That's what I wrote in my notes. I have no idea what that was for. Thought he was gonna die. Okay. Yeah. Man, you're gonna have to be really specific with the questions, because that's all I got thus far. There was a war. The Anacrons lost. They were able to make a deal between the three of them. Harry came out the vault. Oh yes, that's where it is. He's at the vault. But he has two consciousness, and yes, there is no explanation for that. But he has two copies of his consciousness around. One is in the vault, that's on Terminus, that opens when there's a crisis. And then the second one was in Rachel's knife, which Gaal transferred to the Prime Radiant in this episode, not last season. So she trapped him there because she herself doesn't want to deal with what he has planned. Like, this was not what she really signed the fuck up for, and it's way bigger than what she signed up for, and it cost her a great deal because she really loved Rach. And she really loved Harry as like a father figure. She looked up to this man, but you know, a lot of things were done in the shadow, and he did use people as parts of something without giving them the information. And she was one of those parts to be utilized. And so she doesn't want to confront now after running away from what she was being tasked with doing. Now that Race was no longer around. So that's where her story really is at right now. With the Galactic Empire, where we left with them, yes, he had the kid, the Dawn. He was a genetic anomaly. And after they were arguing, because Dusk and Day, they've been going back and forth about this abnormality. And then she took it off the table. So my guess is, if I have to guess, it's not been explicit right now, but the way Day was acting, anyone that has shown a abnormality or has shown to be so different from the genetic code is dealt with and decanted and easily replaced, and that person probably doesn't even know they're being replaced, which has caused a certain amount of paranoia between the genetic dynasty. Now, you mentioned about how he's going to do his clone DNA. I don't think that's even, I think that's hilarious, but I don't even think that's an issue or a problem. Because even in, it seems like the science right now, we're talking about people putting their consciousness somewhere. I think it's more about making his own legacy, his own dynasty. He wants to be a part from, not a part of, this genetic clone thing that they got going on. And he's very vocal about it. He's very brash about it. Whereas Dusk feels that things should stay the same. And then you got Dawn kind of in one of the same positions he was last year, but not with a lot of power and fully aware of his difference, where you see even all these, they're different people. They're not the same people. They've been generations forward. So you see that Dusk, rather, he's more, he's a little bit bolder when it comes to bossing up on Day. Day is reacting more so, and he keeps thinking that his brothers are just going to fall in line. And then you have Dawn, who's far more quiet, but kind of watching and observing as things are, because he's like a son to Day. So their relationship in itself is very emotionally charged. So him wanting to just have his own little genetic dynasty is just him, wanting to make his own stamp. Like, hey, my shit's gonna go on. I don't think he cares if they're uber successful or gonna be just like him. It's just about the good old fashioned I'm overusing this word, and I know I am, but primordial base needs for humans. That's what males are to the genetic species. They're meant to help pass on the genes. I mean, if you look at apes, if you look at monkeys, if you look at a lot of other male species, like what's the one that just swim all the way? I think it's a type of fish. It's not salmon. Maybe it is salmon, but their only job is to swim, and it degrades them, and they get there and they die. But the whole journey is so that they get the chance of passing on their genetic material. So that is one of the most base needs of a male in the hierarchy of society. And it just feels like Homeboy wants to do that. It's like, I don't want to just keep being the same variable passed on and passed on and passed on. I think that's all I got. I'm sure we can always talk offline, and I think after the review there might be more filling in of what's going on in this particular episode. But some of the questions, you're not gonna. We are meant to learn, and once again, the book is way different. Some things are really the same, but some of the characters that are in here just don't exist in the book, and some of the book characters just don't exist in the show. So it'll be interesting to see how they play this out. But there's been talk of revenge, and there seems to be this and that's one of the biggest things I have to say. To say one last thing to your argument of one man. It's odd because in the book, the Empire isn't looked upon as this bad entity just because one person is at the head of it. It's not even like Cleon is a puppet. He's a guy that sits on the throne, and he's considered a rather mundane runner. He's not a really bad guy, but he's not a really great guy. And he is considered the most stable person in the Empire. I mean, it consistently comes with the success of the Empire. That proves that the one rule. Now it's a little different in the books because you don't have the genetic dynasty. But for the show, in the way they are trying to mirror it in the books, it's not an evil. It's not looked upon as, man, this is something. It's more like it worked all the way up to a point, and now it's disintegrating, and now we need to figure out how do we come up with the next stable system. But as far as the book, now I would say the same thing, a dictator for life. But I think the point of it is this one person, Cleon, was so great that he just made great copies of himself. So if you always have a one person, they always make the right decisions and the best decisions and the best tactics. And then you have Demerzel next to them, consistently pushing them to the correct decisions and the correct tactics. Well, yes, it is one person at a godlike state, but sometimes maybe that isn't the worst thing, because there isn't so many hands in the pot to contaminate the soup. I don't know if I would fully support it, but in a certain mindset, in a certain world, I can see it. It's just, it's the antithesis, whatever that word is, of democracy, and thus it's considered an evil virus of Satan. No, that's communism. But I mean, shit, y'all gotta go start looking at the facts. Look at some of the crime rates in some of these countries with only dictator type rulers. They ain't better than ours. So on one hand, we want to say that it can't possibly work, but there's certain circumstances in which it clearly did work. That assimilation under one ruler was beneficial to the country at hand. I mean, even if you go back to the War of the Roses, the Civil War, because of so many candidates that could be king versus finally being one, and more people were happy about the stability of that one empire, that they continued to support that empire, why it lasted so long, those dynasties that lasted so long. So it's definitely not as black and white as it would seem at face value. Once again, if you want to send feedback, blackgirlcouch@gmail.com. My social media will be below. Like, share, subscribe. Until the next time, peace, hair grease, black or magic.